The Bears get sacked by the Packers once again. The NFL playoffs are set. Zach LaVine makes his triumphant return to the Chicago Bulls versus the Charlotte Hornets. And we'll have the return of old school TV Monday. That and a whole lot more as Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago starts right now. Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, and Lakina Brown again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza, including our next guest coming up in a couple of minutes, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
But if you decide to troll, do something stupid, silly, I will take you guys to boot. See ya.
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color on Roku TV. So that's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download the Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will provide these next couple of hours here on Second City Sports, of course. We'll talk Bears and Packers. That's 10 in a row for the Bears, losing to the Packers. Yuck. And the rest of the Week 18 and the last game in the regular season. NFL playoffs are all set up. And, of course, some college hoops. Zach LaVine gets a solid return against the Hornets on Friday. But first, we got one of our favorites on, and he's right on deck. Introduce him, please.
Yes, he's a former Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. He's currently a college football analyst for CBS Sports Network. He's been a longtime NFL TV analyst. He's a great friend of the show. You know him. You love him for his great work throughout the years. He is Mr. Randy Cross. Sir, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Unmute, Randy. Unmute.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Now we're unmuted.
There we go. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing really good. It's kind of hard not to enjoy this time of the year, as many games as you get to watch. And it's going to be weird only having one on TV tonight. But next weekend is probably the most exciting weekend I know in football, when you get just an absolute smorgasbord.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the national championship game first. Of course, Michigan and Washington will be facing each other tonight in Houston for the national championship game. What are your keys to this game?
Yeah, it sounds kind of funny because as many great skill players as there are in this game, I think Michael Penix and his receivers are amazing, and J.J. McCarthy and Corum and I mean, go down that list, but this is the two best offensive lines in the country. No, and it's not even close. I think, Michigan won the last two Joe Moore awards, and Washington won the Joe Moore award this year. And they're going to be, I think that's where the game lies for all the attention, and rightfully so, on guys like Penix and those receivers. If the Washington offensive line can control things kind of like they did last week, they're going to be awful tough to beat, because I know Michigan's going to see a completely different challenge when Washington has the ball than they did last week when Alabama had the ball, because Alabama's offensive line was grossly overmatched.
I wanted to ask you about Michigan's defense, which I thought they did a heck of a job on Jalen Monroe last week in the Rose Bowl. What do you think is their game plan tonight against Michael Penix Jr.? Because he's a heck of an athlete. I think he's better than Jalen Monroe personally. But do you think Michael Penix Jr. will see more zone coverage, or do you think Michigan will be more aggressive against him tonight?
Well, as an all-around quarterback, it's not even close. Milrose developed pretty well, but he wasn't getting the help he really needed. His offensive line had a really bad day or bad night last week, and that totally disrupted their offense. So their running game wasn't there like it normally is. Their passing game, his protection wasn't there. That's how you disrupt a good quarterback. And I think it's pretty simple to look at. How does Michigan get after Washington? Well, they disrupt the pocket. They disrupt Michael Penix. The difference is Penix isn't quite the runner that Milroe is, but you better worry your butt off when you get him out of the pocket, because he can really make things happen. And his receivers adjust extremely well to him. So it's a lot more than immediate pressure on Penix. It's you've got to have gap integrity, you've got to have pass rush integrity, and down the field, you better be in some great shape, because you're going to be running around for a while.
Dylan Johnson, the running back for the Huskies, he's been nursing a foot injury the last couple of months. He might be out tonight. He might be limited. So, do you think that Penix may have to depend on his arm a little bit more with Johnson not being 100%?
It's possible. I would anticipate them still running the ball pretty effectively, because these guys are really good up front. The difference, I think, is going to be the accuracy with which Penix throws the ball. Michigan hasn't seen a quarterback even close to Michael Penix. His ability to throw the ball down the field in a shoebox-sized window is pretty rare. And I think he's done nothing but, up his chances of getting drafted pretty dang high by what he's done.
Talk about Michigan's running game, in particular Blake Corum. He had 87 yards with 2 touchdowns over Alabama, and then went against Alabama last week. What do you expect for him tonight against that opportunistic Washington Huskies defense?
Yeah, I think they're going to get him going pretty well. I would anticipate, because like I said, Michigan's also got a really good offensive line, and their running game is just a core part of their core value of who they are. So I would anticipate Corum having some chances about, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80 yards tonight. If he gets over that, it's a great sign for Michigan. But, you're not going to stop a guy like that. You're not going to stop a running game like that. I think what they do extremely well is they limit the huge explosive plays when it comes to the running game.
Do you think Washington's defense can kind of at least make the big plays? Because we know that they give the big plays, but they can make the bigger plays when they need to. So do you think they can do that tonight?
I think they can. I thought Alabama could handle them a lot better too. So, I was kind of wrong about Alabama and their ability to contain that football team. I thought that running game could be a huge factor. Now, J.J. McCarthy is a guy that can be kind of an X factor in most of these games, because when he gets out of the pocket, he can do some things pretty special. And I think that's something to look for, especially down the field as the receivers adjust.
We're talking pro and college football with our guy, Mr. Randy Koros from the CBS Sports Network, right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live and live in color. Still looking at hanging out here with you. Randy, of course, back to Michigan. Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, has been in the headlines all year long, from the cheating scandal to possibly flirting with the NFL for next year. Do you think tonight's game will be his last on the sidelines for Big Blue?
I hope not. He didn't do a bad job at San Francisco when he was coaching there. He got his team to the Super Bowl against his brother. I just think he's more suited for that game at the college level. His approach is more suited to college than it is dealing with real adults. And obviously the age difference, I think, can be significant, and the maturity of the players can be significant, the difference. I just think he's better for the college game. Now, I may be wrong. He gave it a shot. He almost won the ultimate game, so it's not like he can't do it. I just think he's better suited for that game. Now, after the last couple of years in the NCAA and what he's been through dealing with, them and the rules, infractions, and everything else, he may be done with that baloney.
Yeah, I think we all can agree about that. Let's talk about the kind of summarize the rest of the college bowl season. Georgia looked really good against Florida State. Mizzou got a nice program change. You win against Ohio State. How do you feel about all these guys, some of the top guys sitting out? Do you like the idea? I know this is going to be a start of a trend. So how do you feel about that?
No, I don't like it. College football right now has got a real issue that's got to be addressed. A, they don't have anybody in charge. B, they don't have any rules. And C, along with the rules side, they don't have any standards. So, they're the only major sport in America whose free agency season starts before the games are done. I mean, normally free agents at the end of the season, right? Well, free agency basically starts early December, and in some cases, that's before they've even played conference championship games. I just don't think it's right. I think it's ridiculous. I think they ought to move all these early declaration days for transfer and the portal and all that stuff. NIL needs standards. NIL needs, they need something like a salary cap now in college football, which means they're going to need a collective bargaining agreement with the players as a group. And that means they're going to need a board of directors. They're going to need a person in charge. There's so many things that have to happen for college football. I'm sure they've considered it all. I just think not doing it has pretty much fostered anarchy when it comes to rules or no rules. Let's be honest. When kids start showing up at signing days in Lamborghinis, you kind of know they've lost it.
Good point.
Right.
We're hanging out with our guy Randy Cross from CBS Sports Network right here on Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. Let's now transition over to the NFL. Randy, we'll start out locally here with the Chicago Bears. They finished the 2023 campaign with 7 wins and 10 losses. Justin Fields did make some improvements this year, especially after coming back from the early season injury. Of course, Matt Eberflus, the head coach, as of right now, he is safe going into his 3rd year next year. But if you're sitting in Jim Ryan Poles' chair, what would you do for next year? Would you bring back Matt Eberflus or change the offensive coordinator? Or would you draft, with the 2 first-round picks, would you draft Caleb Williams and send Justin Fields on his way? What would you do if you were sitting in that chair?
Well, first of all, I'm not a huge believer that Caleb Williams is going to be this transformative type player. So if I've got that, you've got the number 1 pick and the number 8 pick. That's pretty strong. That's a lot of ammo. That's a lot of places you can address problems. Whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr. and a top-notch offensive lineman or a top-notch pass rusher, there's a list of positions you have to address, and you've got to be good at to be a top team, especially in the NFL. You've got to be at the top of the game at defensive end and pass rush. You got to be at the top of the game at quarterback. You got to be at top of the game at running back and receiver And there's half a dozen spots you need that. Chicago doesn't have those guys. And I think being able to draft where they're going to draft is going to be critical for them to do that. And it's all going to start with evaluating, is Justin Fields good enough? Can he be the guy? Can he be the guy that's going to lead this sort of reclamation project? It's Black Monday is called Black Monday for a reason in the NFL. A lot of stuff happens, so there's no telling what happens with the head coach, what happens with the general manager. I mean, that's still open for a while. But, they got to make, whoever has to make that decision, especially from an ownership standpoint, whoever's making all the big decisions, that's who has to decide, is Justin Fields going to be the guy? And once you make that decision, then the other one kind of fall into place. But there's an offensive style that's really working in this league right now, and it's kind of an old school West Coast offense idea of formations and motions and, throwing the defense off kind of with eye candy. And it'll be interesting to see if they can, get somebody to come in there and do that, especially if the coach's tenure is in question. Because most of these guys that are the go-to guys that you want to hire as an offensive coordinator, they're usually coordinators or position coaches, either in teams that are still playing in college or teams that are still playing in the pros. So you don't have a chance to really evaluate and or interview them right now.
Let's go to a team that's near and dear to your heart, of course, Randy, the San Francisco 49ers. They clinched the number one seed in the NFC, so they're off this weekend. Of course, Purdy's, has, is still doing his thing. Of course, you've got Debo and, of course, Christian McCaffrey on the defensive side. You got Bosa, and, of course, Chase Young's been shown to be a nice little pickup. How do you like their chances in that tough NFC? Because the NFC is pretty wide open.
Yeah, it is. They're healthy. They have home field advantage, what I think for them can be really, really big, because San Francisco is going out there is a tough place to play because they get such a great support from their fans at home and on the road. Hell, you play them in a road situation, even in the playoffs, half the stadium is going to be red because they're just going to buy out. They're going to buy out tickets. I love their chances. They're healthy, or just about as healthy as they're going to get. And by the time they play again, which is now going to be in 2 weeks, they should be just fine. I think it's tricky having a week off. It's not, I think, the most ideal situation for some teams, but I think for them right now, it's perfect, because by the time they get going again, they're going to need to, be at the top of their game. And that becomes more of the onus is now more on Shanahan and the assistant coaches and getting them right mentally to really come out and, just be an efficient, brutal, executing machine, which they can be offensively and defensively.
Last year's Super Bowl runner-ups, the Philadelphia Eagles, now have lost 5 of their last 6, and Nick Sirianni, of course, with some Philadelphia Eagles fans, he's on the hot seat as they play in the playoffs next week at Tampa Bay. Give us a percentage in your mind that Philadelphia has a chance to reach the Super Bowl, because we've seen before teams going in there hot, they make it to the big game. Some teams going in there struggling. They some of them do turn it around, but it just doesn't happen. What's your confidence level with the Philadelphia Eagles right now?
Well, if you saw the Eagles yesterday, they weren't real impressive. You saw the Cowboys yesterday. They weren't, exactly dominant. The Niners had a lot of people out. There's nobody right now in the NFC. I don't think there's anybody on either side that's really on a roll from a dominant standpoint. The only one you can make the argument for would probably be Baltimore. And that makes the playoffs really, really dangerous, because that's going to leave us open to, when we get to the wild card round, we're going to see upsets. That's guaranteed. That's going to happen. So wait until the divisional round. I think you're going to see teams exposed that you've been loving all year long. One average day can ruin your entire year. in that round. We lost a game in that round back in, I think it was 87, where we should have won the Super Bowl that year. We were the best team in the NFL in 1987 during that whole strike and everything else. We played Minnesota in a divisional round. We weren't completely ready to go. They were, and they beat our butts. And that can happen in these playoff rounds, especially in a year where you don't have a definitive dominant team. And like I said, I mean, there's only one team that you would even begin to say is a definitive dominant team, and that would be Baltimore.
Let's stay on the AFC side. Houston, they become the first team to have a rookie head coach, and D'Amico Ryan's, of course, the rookie QB, and CJ Stroud. They're going to the playoffs for the very, first time in a couple of years. Do you think they can make some noise?
I think they can. Good for them. Good for CJ Stroud being able to have the effectiveness he had. I'm rooting anyway with the background of their coach and where he came from, and what he does defensively. I think is really innovative, and he's a great motivator. It's gonna be tough. You don't go from a dog to the dog in 1 year. I think they can bite somebody, but I don't think they're going to be on top of any dog piles anytime soon. It's going to take a couple of years for that to happen.
Speaking of teams that could be dangerous in the playoffs, Randy, staying with the AFC, what chances do you give the Cleveland Browns? Because they've done a great job all year with their defense. They won. Kevin Stefanski has done a great job. He'll probably win Coach of the Year. He's won one game with 4 different starting quarterbacks. What chances do you give them to perhaps pull off an upset to come playoff time?
I like their chances, and that's not born. I'm not knocking Flacco and what he's been able to do, which is nothing short of stunning. The amount of yards he's thrown for, and the number of touchdowns, and the accuracy that he's had, and everything else. I just think that defense is built in such a way that in the AFC specifically, they can beat anybody. They can hang with anybody the way they play defensively, and that's going to be something I think extremely fun to watch. Stefanski's done a really, really nice job just managing people and managing personalities and managing egos. And that's a problem these days, because you start getting, 10, 20, $30 million contracts on a yearly basis. Ego and self-worth can get a little bit inflated.
We've been talking about NFL for about 10 minutes. We haven't talked about the reigning Super Bowl champ Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen some of the various issues that they've had on offense. Do you think they could still perhaps maybe get to the AFC Championship game?
Well, they stopped dropping the damn ball. It's not real complicated. It's not like Mahomes doesn't know how to throw it, within the frame of the body or lead it to the right spot. They just haven't been catching the ball, and that's been stunning how many times they've ruined good drives or ruined good opportunities with drop passes. I like their defense. I was happy for Tony Jones yesterday getting his $1.2 million for his sack. I thought that was cool. I mean, it's a fun stat. It's a fun thing for fans to kind of go along with and follow it. I don't know. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge, because when you watch teams just efficiently function, and you've seen that from Baltimore, you've seen that from Philly at times, you've seen it from Dallas, you've seen it a lot from San Francisco, you've seen it quite a bit also for another team that's going to be dangerous in the playoffs, the LA Rams. But that's the thing. If you've got that ability to not make mistakes, be healthy, and just function brutally efficiently, and that's going to mean you're going to make some big plays, but it also means you're going to have some 10, 12, 13, 14 play drives. That's the combination I think that gets you a championship.
We're heading down the home stretch with our guy Randy Cross from CBS Sports Network right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina hanging out here with you. Let's go back to the NFC, Randy, and talk about the Detroit Lions. Of course, Dan Campbell, their head coach, has led them back to the playoffs, the first division title since 1993. I was still in grade school, but that's a whole nother story. But talk to us, give us your thoughts about Dan Campbell from an outsider's perspective. What chances do you give them as the playoffs start next week?
Yeah, I mean, it started off, they got kind of a puncher's chance. They're very talented. I love Goff. I love what he can do and the way he can throw and his receivers. And that O-line's played well. And defensively, they've been hell. I mean, Hutchinson's just crazy coming off that corner. He's just like he's like another Bosa brother. I like their chances only because I think he's been preparing. And it's great. It's not often you get this hard knocks where you get a chance to watch a team and you get a chance to watch a coach. But a lot of what his basic tenets of playing football and having a ball club, you listen to what he says, you watch what they do, and you watch what they put on the field, they actually match. And that's not common. I mean, it sounds simple, but it doesn't usually work that way. And I think Dan Campbell, might have done. You talk about Stefanski getting an award. I think you'd have to consider Dan Campbell for a Coach of the Year consideration too, because it's funny. It's those two organizations, because between the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns, you want to talk about two fan bases that deserve another championship, that deserve success. In a number of years, they've supported their team. I mean, at least Detroit never lost their team. I mean, Cleveland's moved to Baltimore. Then they had to fake them out and bring back their jerseys and go, oh, this isn't an expansion team. This is still the
Browns. Exactly. Very, very clever move on that part. Now, let's go back to college. Okay, Randy, Michigan, Washington. Who do you have winning the whole thing tonight?
Yeah, I think Washington's going to pull it off. I love the Michigan story. I love the suspension. The whole value of having a staff that can rally like that is fantastic. They can operate, and people forget they operated for 6 games of the 14 they've played. 6 of them, their head coach wasn't there for games. That's so weird, but that immediately goes to all the assistants, and in particular the guy in charge, obviously. But, Harbaugh's done a really, really good job of keeping this whole program focused. And you want to talk about, us against the world. That should be them on a T-shirt. It's just that's them. That's Michigan. Michigan's whole mantra is it's us against everybody else. And it's worked like a charm so far. But I think this is the time's up. I think Washington's going to pull it off. And which is ironic in the last year of the Pac-12. You got a Pac-12 team winning a championship.
First time ever. And they're probably the only time too, for at least for a long time anyway.
Yeah, at least since SC.
Yeah. Yep. Last question from me, Randy. Of course, we mentioned Baltimore and your San Francisco 49ers. They have the bye weeks coming up this coming weekend for Super Wild Card weekend. Take us back as a player. What would be your game plan as a player if you had the bye week off? Would you take the whole week off and then get back at it the following week to prepare for the possible opponents, or would you get an early head start of watching film?
Well, the main advice I'd have in this situation is I'd ask them one question. Do you want to start your offense or your off season now, or do you want to start your off season in mid-February? And the obvious answer for most people is going to be, well, I'll start it in mid-February. Well, good. Then this off week, even if they tell you to go away, you got to be in the building. You got to be in there watching tape. You got to be in there lifting. You got to be in there getting your body right, being around the trainers, making sure when you go back to playing next week, you're in amazing shape and you're in better shape than you've been maybe all year long. I think that's a very important. The entire team's got to take that attitude. And if you've got a team that does that, you got a team that's going to be really double dangerous when the games start, counting again with this bye, because buys can be tough. Buys can be really tough because players aren't meant to be off. Teams aren't meant to be off. And chemistry works both ways. Chemistry can be a wonderful thing, and chemistry can be absent really fast when you go through a bye situation.
This has been so much fun as
Like that.
always. Yeah, that's really cool. I might use it next time. Randy, thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, we wish we could have you on the whole show. Great stories, great insight. We're gonna definitely have you. Yeah, but we're gonna definitely have you back on next month for the Super Bowl to break that down for us. Make it kind of like a year tradition. So thank you again, Randy. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you next month, I guess.
All right. Sorry for the weird angle and the location here on the thing. I just had a pretty good knee surgery, so I'm in the easy chair, just chilling.
Well, keep recovering. Keep recovering.
Yeah, get well soon.
Get well soon.
All right, take care.
Take care. All right. All right, of course. Oh boy, I got a towel off, City. I always have what we have on my.
It's always great insight from a former player's perspective. He's there as an NFL analyst, of course, college football analyst, and sitting in that easy chair. He definitely deserved it after all these years. So, great perspective, and like you say, he's a great storyteller. So we'll definitely have him on again.
Absolutely, and we're gonna stretch some towel off, and of course, we're gonna talk about the NFL last week of the NFL regular season. Of course, the Bears lose to the Packers. Yuck! And and of course the playoff field is set.
And to pick them on Friday.
Oh God! Hey, look, we told you, Sid. Christy and I told you. But we'll talk more about that after the break. We're gonna break down some of the top games from the last week in NFL regular season. The Keenan McKay City second season sports on Sports of Chicago. More football talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me something.
I finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, goodness gracious. Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. You can find me, Keita McGee, on the Twitter, X at Keita McGee, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. We have less than 90 minutes left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments in the comments, just put them in the comment section at Sports on Chicago's Facebook page or Sports on Chicago on YouTube. The best ones will get posted up on the screen by Lakina.
I don't think people do that. I don't think I've ever seen it.
3rd and 4. Look at that throw. To Moore. Inside the 30. And finally,
right here and get 8 yards quickly.
Here it is to the sideline.
Uh-oh. That's going to run. That's the end of the half.
That's it. That's not even close. They say Wicks was stopped in the field of play, and halftime is here.
What a job by Stevenson. So for people at home, might make your flight tonight.
I hope so. Get the 3-stopper on the way home. And even make the first leg. That's out to the 30.
Running back in.
They fake it to Jones.
Oh, they miss.
Love fumbles the football, and it's recovered by Brisker right before he went out of bounds.
And those highlights are, of course, from CBS Sports. Of course, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo with the call as the Bears lose to the Packers once again, 17-9. It's their 10th straight loss. Talk about the Bears' 10th straight loss against the Packers. Look, I'm gonna just sit here. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet with this because I know we're gonna do this a little bit more condensed. I mean, Justin Fields was sacked 5 times. Only threw for 148 yards. Khalil Herbert wasn't much of a factor, only 28 yards rushing. DJ Moore did get his catches in, unfortunately, but no TDs. And unfortunately for the Bears, Jordan Love on the flip side, 316 yards and 2 TDs. 111 yards for Aaron Jones. We know how much he loves playing the Bears. Also to Jaden Reed, the rookie wide receiver, 112 yards there for them. Of course, Deontavian Wicks, he had the 2 TD catches for the Packers. Sid, I guess everyone was touting, a lot of Bears fans were touting this as, hey, you know what? Look, we're almost the Lions. The Bears are almost the Lions. Yada yada yada. Everything. We're gonna beat the Packers. And I guess, I guess I must have missed that because, you better start talking because I'm going to go on a rant. I don't want to.
Yesterday's game summed up the whole year, Lakin. You play everything close and safe and conservative. Bend but do not break. But the Bears' offense broke in shambles yesterday. Thank you to offensive coordinator Lou Getsky. As we've been telling you all year long, he's been terrible. He should not return. Justin Fields didn't look bad, but that offensive line has been hit or miss all year long, and we told you that as well. The running game actually looked okay, but that Packers defense, especially that front four, stepped up in the running department as far as stopping the run when they needed to. Lakina, this has been the history of this whole Bears franchise. You have a very good defense, but the offense barely gets by. Shout out to our guy, Money Earning Mount Vernon Fairley. Nice comment there. So here's the thing. The Bears got a lot of soul searching to do. I don't want to be GM Ryan Poles right now. He's getting paid the big bucks to make those important decisions like Randy said, Randy Cross said in our last segment. So are the Bears that far away? Me personally, I don't think so. Not defensively as usual, but the offensively, I don't think they're far away. They still need a star wide receiver. I will bring back Justin Fields. Remember, folks, you don't have to make a decision on him till next year if you want to pick up that 5th-year option, folks. So the Bears do not have to do anything right now. It's not urgent for them to do anything right now, unless they say completely that he's not the guy. But yesterday's game told me all they need to know. You start off, remember they went up 3-0, and then the defense made some big plays, including Tyreek Stevenson holding that receiver in bounds. That's the clip you just played before halftime. I said this to a couple of people via social media yesterday. The Bears would have came back to win that ball game yesterday, that would have been the play of the game, because that's, as we talked about before, that's situational football, that's football smarts. But the Bears do a couple of nice things, and they step on their toes, and then they fall short. So yesterday was a microcosm of the whole year.
Yeah, I followed that last part you said about being a microcosm, but let's also remember too, they had a missed field goal. I'm talking about the Packers did. They had the TD pass that was called back from by Bo Melton. That was kind of like that was sort of weird how that kind of played out. Then of course they couldn't get a playoff at halftime. They were right there in field goal range. So for me, in my perspective, this should have been a blowout. Look, it was the credit Tyree Stevenson, that Bears defense, for keeping them in the right conditions, but the Packers dominated pretty much this entire game. And hey, Jaquan Brisker, maybe until you've been talking all year. You talked before the first game against the Packers. You talked about it, this game right here against the Packers. Until you actually beat the Packers at least twice in a row, stop talking. Stop talking. Yeah, you had 4 solo tackles, 8 total tackles, fine, whatever, but you could have done more. They start talking about the wide receivers for the Packers aren't very good. Well, they got a couple of big plays like it. So yeah, stop talking. Don't talk anymore. For one, Fields. I mean, the way Fields was talking, he was talking about this could be his final game. I don't know I don't know how. I don't know if he was told something, whatever. But I think for me, if you heard what Tracy Wolfson said, on the side, of course, does a great job, for CBS. She actually really is a story whereas she interviewed Kevin Warren, he told her that, this is getting a lot of buzz, that he likes everything the way it is. So if you're hoping for a coaching change, if you're hoping for even an OC change, it looks like that's not going to happen. So I think things are going to be pretty much status quo for the Bears next season. They're 7-10. They have a 4-game improvement from last year, but I just think that you need to you're still a ways off, and if you keep saying you're right that they're where Detroit was, no, you're not. You're not. You're right, right below where Detroit was last year.
Yeah, shout out to our guy Arturo Arnold, who the comment we just posted up on the screen. He said, just watch Justin Fields versus Michigan and Clemson. Where's that guy? How did Nagy and Gessie mess him up? I'll answer that first part, Arturo. Remember, Matt Nagy, that was his last year coaching in 2021. Remember, he had Andy Dalton. He didn't want to play Justin Fields at all, but because of Dalton's injury early that season, that's how Justin Fields got the playing time. So that's how Nagy messed up Justin Fields. Now, Luke Gesicki, as I said before, he's playing, calling plays conservatively, not letting Fields let him do what he wants. I get it, you want to cut down on the turnovers, but it's like you said, Arturo, it's just night and day with Justin Fields that we saw in Ohio State into what he's doing now. Is he putting up decent numbers statistically? I'm talking about Justin Fields, yes, but I don't think you really let him, hate to use this term, let him play the way he wants to play. Now, real quickly, Kitty, remember Tim Tebow when he led Denver to that playoff run in 2011, and they beat the Bears, by the way. Thank you, Marion Barber, for going out of bounds instead of staying in bounds, but I digress. But if you watch the episodes on YouTube called NFL Greatest Games, remember they pulled off that upset against Pittsburgh at home. One of the coaches said during that season, because we all knew that Tim Tebow couldn't throw the ball past 20, 30 yards, they went and got the playbook from Florida and had Tim Tebow play to his skill set. Remember, we said that at points last year, Lakina, and it actually worked, and we saw the emergence of Justin Fields here and there last year. With Arturo on this one, where have we seen that on a consistent basis this year for Justin Fields? I get it, you're the number one quarterback in a big market, you take all the hits, but this is not all on Justin Fields. A lot of this has to do with coaching.
A lot of also personnel too. I think people forget that Fields had Chris Olive. He had Jackson Smith and Nigba. I mean, he actually had guys there to throw the ball to when he was at Ohio State. So they just got somebody in DJ Moore, and then look, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to have to address that, whether it's Marvin Harrison Jr. through the draft or whoever. But for me, I think this is going to be like one of those things where maybe the personnel isn't there, or maybe the coaching isn't there, or maybe it's both. Who knows? But look, we've got plenty of time before we get to talk about that. Look, the draft's not till April, late April. So we got some time here before we talk about, okay, what do they do? Do they trade back? Do they trade one of those picks? Or they trade them one pick? Yeah, we've got plenty of time to talk about that. I know people are going to be talking that ad nauseum for like the next 3 months. So I guess we'll have to prepare ourselves for that. But for me, I think, look, the Bears are not where they need to be right now. They just aren't. Tyree Stevenson is really good. We'll see if Jalen Johnson finally gets his money. They may franchise tag him. Who knows? We'll see what they do with Fields. I mean, they may do something. Who knows? It might be status quo, just maybe a little bit of changes here and there. Look, we got plenty of time to talk about that. So for me, I think, look, the Bears are where they're supposed to be. Yes, they're not. They improved, but yet they're not Detroit improved yet. They just aren't.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you as we'll go into our recap of the key games from Week 18, which concluded last night with the Buffalo-Miami contest. Lakina will go through the Saturday games quickly. Of course, Pittsburgh with that win against the Baltimore Ravens. They clinched a playoff spot. Thank you for Jacksonville losing to the Tennessee Titans yesterday. And, of course, C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, as we talked about in our last segment, they beat the Indianapolis Colts to capture the AFC South division title. What were your thoughts about the two Saturday games?
Yes, great. Like I said, we talked about it. They're the first NFL team to have a rookie coach and a rookie QB. Now they're going to the playoffs. So, they needed that. And, of course, we'll talk about that Jacksonville loss in a second. But, a really great showing by CJ Stroud. I'm like Randy. I mean, I don't think they can make any inroads, but I think they can definitely give some teams fits in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens there. Tampa, again, they didn't really do too much as long as they won. As long as they went against the Panthers, they did just that. 9-0. Like Baker Mayfield, 137 yards. No touchdowns. But again, they didn't have to do too much. I'm sure. I think this was probably by design. They didn't have to do too much, knowing that they only had to just beat the Panthers in the playoffs. So that's fine there. Detroit got the number 3 seed in the NFC. They beat Minnesota. Good grief! Look what happened to Minnesota. My God. 30-20 there. Yeah, it's just brutal. 30-20 there. And Jacksonville losing to Tennessee. Look, Christina, I warned you guys that this could probably be. Look, we'll see if this is Mike Brado's final game. We'll see if that happens in the next few days. But look, we knew that they would love to play spoiler for the Jags, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I watched that entire game via this computer screen yesterday, and great job by Kevin Harlan and Trent Green for calling the game for CBS. But Lakina, I've been crying about this in quotes for the last couple of weeks. Where was Travis Etienne, the running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars? I thought they could have used him more yesterday. They didn't. Trevor Lawrence had a nice game as far as passing yards are concerned. He had 2 big touchdown passes, but his 2 turnovers, which would really cost the Jaguars in the game, in my opinion. Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry, both running backs for the Titans, had 4 touchdowns, combined 2 each. And so it was the Trevor Lawrence's 2 interceptions along with the Titans' ground game, which could give anything trouble when they're on any given day. That's what it gave the Jaguars trouble yesterday.
Absolutely, nice, showing by Derrick Henry. We'll see. This could be his final year there. Who knows? But that was a nice little send off for him. If that is his final game in a Titans uniform, we'll see what happens there. The Chiefs. I mean, they set out Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, a lot of their top guys. They beat the Chargers 13-12. Vegas, I know this game didn't mean much, but Vegas, was very impressive against Denver 27-14. If you heard the crowd afterwards, they were shouting AP for, of course, interim coach Antonio Pierce. I know Mark Davis wants to try to get that big fish in Jim Harbaugh, but I'm sure a lot of the players have been lobbying for it. Now the crowd's been lobbying for it. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm sure he'll follow his dad's advice. Look, I'm sure his dad, what was his dad, late father Al would do. But I think Pierce has shown that he definitely deserves a chance. At the very least, he'll get considered for the job.
Yes, as we talked about for the last several weeks, the players, like you said, that they respect Antonio Pierce. They played hard for him. They upset Kansas City on the road on Christmas Day, changing the seating for the Kansas City Chiefs from a bye week to them playing on Wild Card Weekend. We'll get to that later. But the Raiders have played better with the great attitude. I know they've been missing some key guys like Jimmy Garoppolo and their top running back Josh Jacobs, but the guys who has stepped in have done a nice job. You still have Max Crosby, their top pass rusher on the team. He's one of the top 5 pass rushers in the league. So the Raiders do have players, but the question is, Lakina, if they don't go out to get Jim Harbaugh, like you said, Antonio Pierce does deserve the shot. I've been saying that for the last 3 weeks, and I think that's what ended up happening. If that's the case, the Raiders, I'm not going to say they're like the Bears. They may be a slight step behind the Bears, but I don't think, if you really look at their roster closely, I don't think they're that far away either. They definitely need a quarterback. Will it be Justin Fields via trade, or will they get one of these other quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., or Drake May? We'll see what happens. But the Raiders are not that far away. Now, Denver, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, they have to eat a lot of that dead money from to avoid eating that dead money from Russell Wilson's contract. So we'll see if they can find a taker, perhaps load up on some picks. So we'll see what happens. Sean Payton and the rest of that staff, that brass up in the Mile High. I mean, they'll have a lot of questions going into the off season. Now, speaking of going into the playoffs, the Eagles just got hammered by the Giants 27-10. Jalen Hurts, thankfully there's no fracture on that finger in his throwing hand, so thankfully he'll be ready for the playoffs against Tampa. Of course, Sidney Brown, not this Sidney Brown, but the talented safety for the Eagles. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL. Now he's done for the playoffs. AJ Brown looks like, thankfully they avoided any serious injuries, so we'll see this, and hopefully he'll be able to play this weekend. So look, we talked about it with Randy earlier, and it's just like the wheels are just starting to fall off with the Eagles, and the course is getting louder over, and not a lot of brotherly love for Mr. Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, things are not looking good on Broad Street right now in the city of brotherly love. But, there are some issues going on in that locker room before what happened the last couple of weeks. I know A.J. Brown kind of hit and miss talking with the media. It's been a problem between him and the head coach all year long by not getting enough targets. That's what happens when you have stud wide receivers like with the talent like his. But, Lakina, I did watch that game yesterday via this computer screen in this entirety. Before that finger injury to Jalen Hurts, the Eagles didn't look right anyway. I thought they would muster up some stones and take it to the New York Giants, but they didn't do it. But Nick Sirianni had no choice but to do it right as far as he did let Jalen Hurts play a couple more series in that first half, but at halftime, he pulled him, and, of course, A.J. Brown sat the rest of the game due to that injury. Of course, Marcus Mariota came in to play in that second half. Looked like Philadelphia did look better in that second half, even though that game was basically put away at halftime. But I'm worried about the Eagles right now. Let's just say even they will give you our picks on Friday before the wild card weekend. But even Philadelphia beats Tampa Bay next Monday night, are you confident that they're going to beat Philadelphia or beat Dallas or San Francisco? I'm not.
No, I wouldn't. I think they would. I think they would play San Fran if they beat, because they're the higher seed. They're number 5. They got to go at Tampa. I know some Philly fans aren't happy about that, but sorry folks, that's kind of how it all kind of like sets up. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa. I'm not gonna say Tampa's gonna pull off the upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if. Look, if you're Tampa, you're kind of rubbing your hands. Yeah, like if you're rubbing your hands, you're thinking, maybe we have a chance here. Of course, things are kind of like going into pad here, but for Philly, but we'll see what happens there. Now, saying now with that loss, Dallas wins the NFC East, 38-10 over Washington, and we'll talk about all the coaching stuff later on. But for me, I think Dallas, they look really good. I mean, they will have to. They have to host a game. They'll play Green Bay and Mike McCarthy against his former team. That'll be interesting. But I think for me, look, Dallas looks really good, but they do get Green Bay at home, so that should help them out a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not totally sold on Dallas just yet, but I feel like, okay, at least with this, they can kind of like, okay, they can get past this game, and we'll see who they play after that. Should they get past Green Bay? I mean. All right, as we get into the
after that early turn.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying that. Okay. Yeah, after that early turnover, Dak Prescott looked great with throwing 4 touchdown passes. CeeDee Lamb caught 2 of them. He had 13 catches, once again, close to 100 yards. Tony Pollard, nice job by Mike McCarthy getting back to that run game for the Dallas Cowboys. He had 70 yards rushing and a touchdown score as well. So Dallas did look great yesterday after struggling to start the game. And that's what you need to do against a lesser opponent, the Washington Commanders. Congratulations to the Cowboys clinching that number 2 seed in the NFC East title. So, like you said, Lakina, it's not going to be easy against Green Bay next Sunday afternoon. But should they get past the Packers, which they're supposed to, we'll see if they do. It's going to get a little bit tougher, but I still think I like their chances because they'll have an extra home game should they get past Green Bay next Sunday afternoon.
We'll see what happens with that now. But of course, capping off the regular season last night, Buffalo beat Miami 21-14 in a pretty sloppy game, I think would be one way to put it. Josh Allen had 2 red zone interceptions, 2 end zone interceptions. This should have been a blowout for the Bills, but of course, those interceptions made it interesting. But it was a punt return by Deontay Hardy, who 96 yards, that kind of broke the game open right there. And I think after that happened, I think that's when the game turned. And of course, Miami, just couldn't get it going on off after those 2 TDs in the second quarter. And give Buffalo team credit, kind of slowed them down a little bit. And of course, like I said, that the Hardy 96-yard punt return for the TD, I think that kind of really sort of changed the scope of the game.
Yeah, and the Bills did what they needed to do down the stretch, as you mentioned, 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. And Josh Allen, I know he led the team in rushing, which I am not happy about. Hopefully they can get back to not doing that come next weekend when they host the Pittsburgh Steelers in their wild card game at home. But Josh Allen's been playing near MVP type balls ever since now ex-offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey was let go about a little bit over a month ago. So the Buffalo offense looked great. Sean McDermott, their head coach, who I have issues with at times. He's done a nice job. But we'll see what happens as the bell rings for them next Sunday. Last night, and their running game, call me crazy, Lakina, it was non-existent last night. I know they do it with finesse. They're not a powerful, physical running team like some of these other teams like the Rams or the Cowboys to a less extent. But I'm worried about them going into Kansas City. I'm talking about Miami next Saturday night.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. Well, like I said, we'll preview that game on Friday. Studs and duds for the final week of the regular season.
Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers, 111 yards rushing as the Packers beat the Bears 17-9. My second stud will be Dak Prescott for touchdown passes with 279 yards as the Cowboys win the NFC East and beat the Washington Commanders 38-10. And my third stud will be 3, 2, 1. Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans, 19 carries, 153 yards and a touchdown as the Titans upset the Jacksonville Jaguars, denying them access to the playoffs 28-20.
All right. Buffalo, of course, for overcoming those 2 Josh Allen red end zone TDs. Like I said, that game should have been a blowout, but thank you, Deontay Hardy. If you're a Bills fan, you get the number 2 seed in the AFC. Let's see here. And that's another stud. I'll say Vegas. I mean, just because they've been playing very well. Hopefully, I'm sure Antonio Pierce will get a chance to talk. I'm sure if Jim Harbaugh says no, I'm sure he'll probably be the guy over there in Vegas and Houston. Like I said, I've been touting this team for the last. I didn't think things would happen this quickly. They would end up winning the division, but look, they earned their way in. They already had been the playoff spot, and of course, I'm sure they'll be sending flowers or whatever to Tennessee to get that going. Get that going there. And also guys who've gotten their bonuses. Javen Clowney got $1.5 million bonus for a sack during that game against Pittsburgh. And then Puka Nacua is now the leading rookie rusher. Just an amazing story on his part. We'll see if he'll play a big part in the playoffs there this weekend for the Rams. And any other guy that got his bonus. I mean, congrats to you guys.
Yeah, and Chris Jones, too, as we talked about with Randy Cross in our last segment. I saw the whole team ran down Mr. Jones after he got that sack. It's like, yeah, congratulations. And him sitting out the first couple of games of the season, it was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you saw Clowney afterwards. Yeah, he knew. I'm sure no one at home thought what was happening. But yeah, the way he was celebrating, he thought, "Oh, I got my bonus." Yeah, it's hilarious. All right, duds.
Duds the Jacksonville Jaguars. My second dud will be the Philadelphia Eagles, just because. And my third dud is now former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith, of course. Following yesterday's game against the New Orleans Saints, of course, the Saints recovered a turnover, I believe, from the Falcons, and Jameis Winston was in the game. They were supposed to kneel the ball, using air quotes here. They scored a touchdown to extend their lead. I'm talking about the Saints to 48-17. And after the game, Arthur Smith has some choice words for New Orleans head coach Dennis Allen. I don't know if you caught this, Lakina. I know the game was broadcasted here in Chicago, but they cut away early, and they went to the Tennessee Jacksonville game. But I caught this on NFL Red Zone. Tiki Barber made a comment after that. He said, this is football. You can do whatever the hell you want. Yeah, I'm old school. If you want to prevent that kind of stuff, stop them. I'm like, okay. And then NFL Red Zone cut away to the other game. I was like, Tiki Barber, yes. Arthur Smith, you're mad because you were going to get your peak slam. That's what happened to you.
That's probably why you got pissed, more than anything. Yeah. Real quick, my three duds real quick. Of course, Miami. And like I said, I know they're more new school, but your running game is going to be the key, especially when you're going to be facing Kansas City and Arrowhead this weekend, and they play in the Super Wild Card weekend. So I'm just saying there. The Bears, all that talking y'all did. All week long, think, oh, you're the next Detroit Lions. You're the Lions. No, you're not. No, you're not. Sorry. No, you're not. And Jacksonville. Some heads have to roll over there in Jacksonville. I don't know what's going on down there, but you had the AFC South division title in your grasp. You lose, like 4 of your last 5. But I don't know. I got nothing.
Here, real quickly, on Jacksonville, I don't think Doug Peterson is going to get the boot. Remember, he led them to the playoffs last year, so it was mostly due to injuries this year with Jacksonville, especially with that offensive line, of course, Trevor Lawrence. And I think when they lost their wide receiver, his name escapes me for the moment. I know Calvin Ridley's been off and on all year too, but when his name is Christian Kirk, thank you. When Christian Kirk got injured in the middle of that season, they got waxed by the 49ers. I think that's where it really turned the tide as well. And then they lost that Monday night game at home to Cincinnati. That's where really starting to avalanche rolling down hills. So it may be some personnel. It will be some personnel changes. I don't think it had to be a major overhaul, but I think Jacksonville will be back next year. But it's going to be a tougher AFC South division than we thought coming into this year, because Indianapolis is going to get their quarterback Anthony Richardson back next year from injury. Houston's going to be tough. We'll see what happens against Cleveland this coming weekend for a wild card. And like I said, Tennessee, they're rebuilding, but they could be a surprise team next year. So for Jacksonville, don't take anything for granted, because we all thought, including yours truly, thought they would just walk away with that AFC South Division title. Well, due to injuries, you saw what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this would have been the year. This was their best shot to get that division, and unfortunately, all the teams behind them are on the up. So, then now that Houston's going to the playoffs, and they're going to be going golfing. So, go figure with that. Now, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up. As I can see, Sports on Chicago. Zach LaVine, makes his return against the Hornets. A nice showing there, and the rest is NBA. Of course, a big monster done by 39-year-old LeBron. That's we'll talk about that. Of course, we'll talk about some college hoops, and of course, Bedar is going to be gone for a while after getting his jaw broke by Brendan Smith.
Damn,
you're on my list there, Brendan. And a whole lot more. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports at Sports of Chicago. More fun coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. You're so
know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Mr. Kim McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me, Kim McGee, on the Twitter, X, and Kim McGee, and IG.
We have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Makino will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can get Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere, and not now, but right now on Roku TV.
Okay, Sid. Of course, the Bulls. No trouble with the Hornets, 104-91. They did have a little bit of a slow start. They're only up 1 against the Hornets, but it was all Bulls. After that, DeMar had 17 points. Kobe White led the way for the Bulls with 22. Io had 12, I should say, for the Bulls. They weren't very good. They were okay. Not great from 3-point range. You only made 10 threes, but you're facing the Hornets, so you can kind of have an off shooting day there. But, a nice showing there and a good team win. Zach LaVine had 15 points off the bench, for them. Vooch had 11, so a solid showing by him as well, and 7 boards. But a nice, good win against a team you're supposed to beat if you're the Bulls.
As I've always been saying, Lakina, ever since Zach LaVine's injury, and I'm going to say here again as he made his return last Friday, when the Bulls average between 25 team assists or more, they usually win the majority of their games. Last Friday, they had a team assist total of 29, and that's how you get it done and view this Bulls team. We talked about it when Zach LaVine was out. They were sharing the basketball. Other players, they're not used to getting shots. They were getting more shots like Vucevic, Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and Alex Caruso. I know he missed Friday's game due to an injury, but those players, contributing players, especially coming off the bench, they're starting to get more playing time. They have taken full advantage of it. Now, for the last couple of weeks, Kobe White's been struggling, especially with his shooting from 3-point range. He got back on track on Friday, as you mentioned, with the 22 points, including 3 of 6 shooting from downtown. So it looks like he's starting to get his confidence back. Ayo Dosunmu is continuing to press the buttons of this Bulls coaching staff. He's been really playing on the up and up, coming off the bench right now. So wherever Ayo, whether he's spot starting or coming off the bench, he's really contributing in a nice way to this Bulls team.
Yeah, definitely fitting in. So we'll see what they do tonight. Of course, they do the home and home. They're in Charlotte. They play them tonight down there in North Carolina. So no reason why the Bulls can't win both of these games. Of course, they get Houston coming up later this week. It gets a little bit tougher after that. Well, Houston's been an up-and-coming team. They've actually beat the Nuggets a couple of times this year. So that might be a trap game for the Bulls. But there's no reason why the Bulls can't get punch up Sunday before it gets a little bit tougher, of course, with their schedule coming up this month. Now, the rest of the NBA, of course, starting from yesterday, of course, LeBron had a dunk. I guess he just turned 39 a couple of weeks ago, folks. And, I mean, he had just a monster dunk in the second quarter. Unfortunately, and that propelled them to a much-needed win for the Lakers. They edged out the Clippers 106-103. I actually saw a little bit of this game. Straight back and forth from that Buffalo-Miami game. And it was actually a pretty entertaining game, as it usually is between these two the backdoor rivals, I guess. But yeah, this was a win that the Lakers desperately needed. LeBron leading the way with 25.
Yeah, also, too, Anthony Davis had a big game with 22 points and 10 rebounds and 2 block shots as well. I did watch the majority of the game live via this computer screen. And the Lakers did get other contributions for Jerry Vanderbilt on the defensive end. D'Angelo Russell finally showed up, Lakina, 13 points, including 3 big buckets in the fourth quarter. So let's see if D'Angelo Russell can turn around his up and down season. And, of course, Austin Reeves had 8 points, even though he struggled, but he made a couple of key plays down the stretch as well. Taurean Prince had 13 points as a starter. So, as we said before, Lakina, LeBron James and Anthony Davis had missed a total of 5 games so far this year. They've been healthy the majority of the season. Is the inconsistency of the role players that has been the problem for this Lakers team, and they cannot play team defense. But they did that last night as they squeaked it out over the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, as I asked on Friday, Lakina, can we get all the big stars to play in this game for both teams? Well, last night the answer was yes. As you mentioned, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both did their thing. James Harden contributed as well. But did you see, I don't know if you saw this on social media, Lakeem, did you see James Harden's surprise face when LeBron James dunked over Paul George?
Yes, that was hilarious. I think he was probably just as surprised as everyone else. And
yeah, exactly.
The Clippers had just had won like 14 of the last 15 since December 1. That's only their second loss in their last 16. So, yeah, they were on a little bit of a road there. And, of course, Lakers kind of, at least for right now, kind of like, made a stop on that. The Raptors.
Yeah, one more note from that game last night, Lakina. Did you see Norman Powell's potential game-tying 3-point shot? Austin Reeves, as I mentioned, he made a couple of big plays down the stretch. He made a key defensive play, making Norman Powell adjust his 3-point shot because I believe it was only 3.5 seconds left. Norman Powell takes the ball. They had to take the ball out of bounds. Went full court. Austin Reeves made Norman Powell adjust his shot, and Norman Powell got it halfway down. And if you saw the reaction for the Clippers, they were shot to like whoa, that thing barely went halfway down, and then it came out. But it was an exciting finish to a very good game last night.
Yeah, basketball guys can be very mean at times, but yeah, that was a tough way for the Clippers to lose. That could have forced to overtime, but good, but nice defensive little stop there by Reeves there. The Raptors beat the Warriors 133-118, and also too this stems from a couple of days ago. It looks like Draymond Green will be eligible to be back this week, so yeah, I'm sure definitely a much needed spark there. We'll see. Then we'll see if he can bring that to the Warriors and stay out of trouble. Grizzlies beat the Suns 121-115. Jaren Jackson Jr. led the way with 29. Book had 24 for the Suns, a losing effort there. Denver took care of Detroit. Dallas beat Minnesota. The Pelicans beat Sacramento. Sacramento's probably worst shooting of the season. It was all Pelicans. They pulled away in the second half there. The Magic beat Atlanta in overtime. The Cavs edged out the Spurs. Jared Allen had 29 there, and Portland took care of the Nets in overtime, 134-127.
I'll comment on that Dallas-Minnesota game last night. I was watching that a little bit live before the Lakers-Clippers game last night. Luka Doncic really looked good, and Kyrie Irving, who's been injured off and on this year, he returned to the lineup, scoring 35 points last night. As we talked about last season, Lakina, that Luka Kyrie Irving combo, we all thought that it was going to work. We thought that it didn't work as far as them making it to the playoffs last year. This year, it looks like it's been split up due to various injuries for Kyrie Irving, but it looks like things could finally start turning it back around in Dallas's favor. They are 22-15 right now, and Luka, I think, is taking his game to the next level. But just like we talked about with the Lakers, it's going to be up to the supporting cast of the Mavericks to help out those two guys every night.
Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. needs to step a little bit more, and a couple of other guys as well. So yeah, that's gonna be the key. The role players. But a nice win for the Mavs against one of the top teams in the league in Minnesota. Saturday's games. Houston. I warned Bulls fans, of course. You don't want to look past the game against Houston later this week. They just
saw what Houston did to the Bulls last year with lesser talent. The day after Christmas, remember that?
Yeah, exactly. And they beat Milwaukee a couple of days ago, 112-108. Alperen Sengun, one of their talented young players, had 21 points in the way for Houston. That's despite Giannis having 48 points. So the fact that he had 48, but it wasn't enough. Usually they win those games when we score over 40. So but Houston, of course, they made some of the defensive stops, and they were able to pull off the upsets.
Are you worried about the Milwaukee Bucks right now and their chemistry? I think it's just a little small bump in the road. I'm not saying no team is perfect, but are you worried about the Milwaukee Bucks right now? I'm not going to say I'm worried about them, but I'm just a little concerned. We said it was going to take time for Giannis and Damian Lillard to get that chemistry down, and it looks like it's starting to turn around a little bit, but listen to these lesser teams. You're having trouble with the Pacers this year, as you just mentioned. They lost to Houston the other night. Are you starting to get worried about the Bucks, or it's not time to panic yet?
No, I don't think it's time to panic just yet. I mean, Look, it's a long season. You're gonna have those little ebbs and flows. You're gonna have those little bumps in the road. I know that they had a bad after Giannis. The rest of the team had a bad shooting night. So and Houston, they're tough to beat when they're hitting their threes. So I'm not too worried about them at this point. But I think I think it's just one of those fluke losses that usually happens in the long season. So I'm not too worried about them. Utah upset the Sixers. Remember, Joel Embiid did not play, though. I want to preface that. So 120-109, they were able to the Jazz were able to take advantage. Lauri Markkanen had 33 points, was a season high for him, and Colin Sexton kicked in with 22. So again, Embiid did not play, so it's kind of hard to make a honest assumption of this game, since they were not at full strength. But Maxey had 25. Kelly Oubre Jr. had 24. But after that, not a lot of contributions, and I think that's going to be the key if Philly wants to make it to the promised land.
Yeah, we've been saying it all year. We talked about their victory over the Bulls last week in Philadelphia. Tobias Harris scored over 20 points. You know what you're going to get with Tyrese Maxey. Of course, we already know what you're going to get with Joel Embiid. But Patrick Beverley has done a nice job bringing that defensive energy coming off the bench for Philadelphia this year. So, as you mentioned, who's going to be that third guy to help out Maxey and Embiid? Will they be consistent? You'll need that, especially come playoff time.
Yep. And we'll see what happens there. New York beat Washington. I think they're 4-0 since a Nabi trade. Boston, no trouble with Indiana, 118-101. I should say Jason Tatum had 38 points. Benedict Mathurin for Indiana, losing scored 20. Friday's games, of course, the Kings beat the Raptors 135-130. That was actually a pretty good game. Memphis beat the Lakers. The Warriors bested the Pistons, holding them off. Phoenix beat Miami with Grayson Allen leading the way there for Phoenix. Magic edged out the Nuggets 122-120. Paulo Banchero had not only a game high but also season high for him, 32 points.
I want to ask you a question about Orlando. I know they cooled off after their hot start to the season, but it looks like they're starting to get their game back. Do you think they're ready to compete? I'm not going to say for a playoff spot because I still think they're a year away. But do you think they can at least sneak into the play-in tournament? The reason why I asked this because I know Indiana's there. I believe still 5 games above 500, which is very surprising to many people. Indiana's there. Atlanta is still mediocre at best. The Brooklyn Nets have really fallen off these last couple of weeks. We all know what's the Bulls situation. They still 5 games under 500, but I think Orlando maybe can sneak into the play-in tournament. Maybe call me crazy, but I think there's a chance for them to sneak into the play-in tournament.
I'll say this: it won't be an easy win if you're looking at them. They've got Buckner, they got Wagner, they have players, so it's not like this is not a talentless team in Orlando. But I don't think they're there yet. I mean, could they sneak into the play-in? Sure, but I think. But I'll say this: it's not going to be an easy win. Don't consider Orlando an easy win if you're a Western Conference team, and Denver learned that on Friday. So I think Orlando could definitely get some teams fits. No doubt. Mavs beat the Blazers pretty easily. The Clippers beat the Pelicans kind of easily there. Minnesota no trouble with Houston, of course. We talked about the Bulls. The Knicks beat the Sixers pretty handily, and this is when one of those look, we just talked about it with their win, but with Embiid not playing, but in this case here it was really the lack of contribution from some of the other guys. Nicholas Batum, no points, really. Tobias Harris, he only scored 5, really. I mean, it's one of those things where you're kind of like, yeah, Embiid did his thing, Maxey did his thing, but yeah, it's like I said, I've been seeing this forever, but it's really going to be the role players that's going to be the key for the Sixers if they want to go far in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's been the message that I've been preaching with the Sixers team over the last couple of years, so it's going to be the case until that bell rings for the playoffs. Now, on the flip side for the New York Knicks, as you mentioned, they traded for OJ Anunoby last weekend for RJ Barry, but that New York Knicks team is starting to come on over the last couple of weeks. Of course, they had that big win at home against a surprising Minnesota Timberwolves team. We saw what they did against the Bulls last Wednesday night at MSG on national television. And they picked up, as you mentioned, they picked up a couple of wins over the weekend. So that New York Knicks team is starting to show that they can compete. They could compete with the top teams in the East. I'm not saying they're Philadelphia, Milwaukee, or Boston, but they could be that upper tier around where they were a year ago when they won 47 games. Can they win 50 games? I don't know, but that's going to be tough. We know that Mitchell Robinson is done for the year. They released Taj Gibson last night, and so their front line, Julius Randle, he's starting to change his game a little bit. Isaiah Hardenstein, their starting big man, he's starting to play well. Jalen Brunson is an all-star this year. He's doing better this year than he did last year, and last year he really kicked butt. But this Knicks team looks like they're finally found their way to hit their stride.
Yeah, I want to see if they can keep it up. That's going to be the key. Can they keep it up? Like, I think people are just not getting used to not being mean on the team. He actually has been a force on the outside, but I think I want to see how the rest of they face the rest of the teams. I know they just beat Philadelphia, but yeah, I mean I'm not there with the Knicks just yet. I mean I think the Knicks could definitely be in that second tier. After of course Boston and Philly and Milwaukee, but yeah, that second tier is pretty much wide open. So yeah, Miami, you can probably put them there too. I know they've kind of been up and down as well. So yeah, that Eastern Conference after those big three is kind of for grabs in that part. So yeah, that's going to be where the bread and butter is going to be. I mean, Indiana sneak up in there, sure, but I think the Knicks. I'm not there with the Knicks just yet. I mean, I know they look, it has played it, made a big difference so far, but I'm not there with them yet.
I want to talk about the Miami Heat. You just brought up Lakina. I know they beat the Lakers the other night without Jimmy Butler, and they've been missing some other key guys as well. But Jaime Vasquez, the rookie from UCLA, I liked him last year when he was with the Bruins, but he's really stepped up late. Of course, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero is still there. Bam Adebayo is still there, anchoring the middle. You got to give Eric Spoelstra credit once again. I know that that there was the story all summer long about the services of Damian Lillard. Of course, that didn't happen, but this Heat team still keeps trucking along. And Kevin Love, he's still giving you performances here and there. I guess as of right now, it's a smart decision for the Heat to bring him back.
Yeah, I think that's really going to be a smart. That'll probably end up being a pretty smart decision on their part. And look, to their credit, I mean, look, those guys just mentioned, they're keeping everybody afloat. So look, I'm kind of like, I think, like I said, Miami is kind of in that second tier. But again, the consistency through through everything else, I think that's really going to be the key in there. Hopefully, Jimmy comes back soon because they're really going to need him, especially if they want to get to the playoffs. They'll probably get to that near that top six after the big three we've been talking about.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you on the Monday edition here on Sports Zone Chicago as we talk Bulls and NBA. Lakina, I want to go back to the Western Conference. Draymond Green, of course, everybody thinks he's going to be on his best behavior from now to the end of the season. I don't know about that. He likes to tote the line. And yes, at least on the court, the Warriors have missed him. Everything's been put on Steph and Clay's shoulders. Of course, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't have trust in Steve Kerr anymore. There's just a whole bunch of issues. Do you think that Draymond Green's return will, quote unquote, solve all the Warriors' problems? I don't think so. They'll be a much better team. But at this point, Lakina, the Warriors are a playing team just like they were the year before they won their 2022 title.
Well, it's one of those things where it's kind of hilarious that I think everybody is still sort of, that kind of, that kind of thing, mentality where they could he probably, give him that spark. Absolutely. And I think the question is, can he stay out of trouble? And I think that's really going to be like the number one thing, especially as far as the Warriors are concerned. I'm not one of those teams one of those folks that likes to, that the Warriors are completely out. I mean, look, we did that last time. Look what happened. They ended up, winning the championship. So, look, I'm not there yet. Look, I'm not going to say they're going to win the championship. I want to kind of preface that, but look, they're barely out of the play-in. They're like a half game back from the Lakers for the that last play-in spot. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. If by game 10 he plays, he starts acting like a knucklehead again, then we'll probably talk about that. But I think for right now he'll be on his best behavior. I just think that he wants to kind of prove to folks that he can kind of let all that keep quiet, let all that die down. So yeah, I think I'm kind of in a wait and see mode with Draymond, especially with this coming up.
Are you in wait and see mode with the Phoenix Suns, or are you hitting the panic button?
I'm hitting the panic button. They're ninth right now in the West. They're that play-in spot. I know Bradley Beal's been out, but it's been the lack of depth for that team. I know KD's been in out. I think he didn't play their last game. And Book's been putting it together there, but like I said, they don't have a solid supporting cast. They don't. And I know Frank Vogel's doing the best he can with the talent that he has, but they're going to have to make some changes. They want to. I know some people said maybe KD should want to trade, but I don't know if he's not going to do that just yet. So
no,
they need to get bump up that supporting cast, because if not, it's going to be that sun's going to be setting a little bit quicker than they thought.
I could agree with you more. So, like you said, we'll see what happens with the Phoenix Suns. They're one of the favorites to win the NBA title this year. They're around 500, and they've been struggling with injuries all year. I want to go back to the Bulls, Lakina, and here's the thing with Zach LaVine. I think we were 5-6 weeks away from the trading deadline. Mm-hmm. Call me crazy, but the Bulls don't have to trade Zach LaVine. I know the story's been out there that there's no trade market value for him, which I do believe, by the way, because of his contract that the Bulls signed him to a couple years ago. But if he plays well and the team still struggles, maybe you could find something for him. But the Bulls are really not in a rush to trade him right now. Now, if Zach LaVine can still put up the numbers like he did in his return the other night, and the Bulls started to turn it around, really get over 500. Of course, the Bulls management with Arturo Connors-Trovis and GM Mark Eversley, I think they will stay. Of course, they'll just add somebody at the trade deadline because they're right up against the cap. But I know many Bulls fans want Zach LaVine gone. You may get your wish, but I don't think it's going to be at the trade deadline. You could still probably try this again over the summer. But right now, just like the Justin Fields situation we talked about in our last segment, you don't have to trade him right now. You don't.
No, you don't. No, and I don't think they will either. I mean, look, the Bulls have been playing pretty well now. If they can at least get to 500, at least be near 500 and be right there in the play-in, I don't think they're not going to be any big changes. I know Bulls fans
don't think so either.
Yeah, I mean, I know Bulls fans don't want to hear that, but I think that's going to be the reality. And look, by this summer, look, if things change, if he still wants to go, then maybe explore. But if he actually still compete at that level before he got hurt, I think you can definitely maybe get something for him. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think that's going to be to be continued with that front as well. Let's go through the schedule through the whole week. Starting with tonight. Of course, the Bulls play the Hornets. They're home and home. Boston, Indiana. That should be that'll be interesting to see if if Indiana get their revenge after losing to Boston. I'm not repeating myself. They're playing back to back. Don't ask me why that's still happening. OKC and Washington at 6. Miami and Houston. That should be an interesting one there. Utah and Milwaukee at 7. And as Utah continues their East Coast trip, and a good one here, NBA TV. I know the Lakers. The Clippers will not be happy at their loss to Lakers last night, so I'm sure they're going to want go take it out on somebody in Phoenix with their struggles on NBA TV at 9:30 tonight.
Yeah, big game for both teams. Tomorrow, Tuesday, Sacramento will pay a visit to Detroit to take on the Pistons. Minnesota will pay a visit to Orlando to face the Magic. Portland will visit MSG for the only time this year as they'll take on the New York Knicks. And we'll have the Memphis Grizzlies and the Dallas Mavericks. That's the long NBA TV game for Tuesday. And wrapping up this Tuesday night schedule, the Toronto Raptors will face the Los Angeles Lakers at the stadium formerly known as Staples Center.
Used to be known as Staples Center. Wednesday, a big schedule. You got Minnesota and Boston. That should be an interesting one at 6. Sacramento continue their East Coast trip against Charlotte. San Antonio against Detroit. Washington and Indiana at 6. You got Philadelphia and Atlanta. Miami and hosting OKC. You got, of course, the Bulls. Could be a trap game for them against Houston. Golden State, as they host New Orleans. That's going to be the ABC Wednesday night game.
A whole lot of drama celebration in that game, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a big party there. On ESPN, you got Utah hosting Denver on ESPN, and Toronto and the Clippers at 9:30 on Wednesday.
All right, Thursday schedule for the NBA looks like this. The Brooklyn Nets and the Cleveland Cavaliers will play an early Thursday afternoon game because the game will be televised on NBA TV, and this will be played in Paris. So that's your annual Paris NBA Paris game, the Brooklyn Nets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Your other Thursday night schedule games looks like this. The first game of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader will feature Boston at Milwaukee. That should be a great game. Other games will have Portland at OKC, the Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks. And the second half of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader will feature the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers. That's at 9 o'clock Chicago time. So remember, those two teams played a few times in that in-season tournament. The last game gave us a classic, controversial finish where the Lakers won. And, of course, they won to win the in-season tournament title. So these two teams will face off for the first time since the in-season playing tournament game.
Should be a fun one there. And that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina hanging out here with you. Lakina, we got to get into the weekend of college basketball. The Fighting Illini took a bad loss against Purdue. Kansas and TCU went at it over the weekend. We also got to get into Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. Also, we have other sports news and nuggets as well. And the return of Old School TV Monday. Yay! That and a whole lot more as you're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. This is Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink, And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. This is our last break of the show for today. So, you have any last minute questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And you can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can find my Kenny McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't go again, the IG.
All right, Lakina, where do you want to go first, college basketball or the college football national championship game?
Oh, let's do the college hoops and get that out the way.
Okay.
Purdue, of course, held on against Illinois. Look, I'll give Illinois credit. They were down, I think, like 25. I bet 25 at one point. They did come back, leading the way there. Marcus Dormouse had 26 points. You know, he was the one that kind of started that rally. Connor Hawkins as well for Illinois. But it wasn't enough as Purdue held them off 83-78. I think that was really what kind of did Illinois in. They were missing their threes in the early. Purdue was hitting their shots, and it was just Troy Kaufman-Wren had 23 points. Zach Edey had 17. So for me, I think that it was really that hot stop by Purdue that kind of did Illinois in.
Also, too, I thought it was rebounding in particular offensive rebounding. Purdue had a plus 15 edge of rebounding overall, 43-28, but it was the offensive rebounding that really did Illinois in as well. Purdue had 18. The final lineup had 12 offensive rebounds. So without Terrence Shannon Jr., we knew it was going to be tough for Illinois. I know they have another big game coming up, I believe, against Michigan State later, and we will give you the time and schedule, date and time for that in just a moment. But as you mentioned, Lakina, they did come back. Also looked good. He had a couple of big shots in there as well. But I believe it was the rebounding overall, and particularly on the offensive end, that did the final line in.
Absolutely. UConn, no trouble with Butler. I mean, that they held on 88-81. Going into Saturday's games, Kansas and TCU. I know it was back and forth between them. I think TCU was up at there by six. I think but there was a flagrant foul that was called that kind of. But even with that flagrant foul, I know TCU fans were not happy about that. But they still had the chances to at least tie it, if not even take the lead. So. Yeah, that was a bad call, you probably say, but they still had a shot. Hunter Dickinson, made some clutch shots late on the inside. That's why he was brought on, to Kansas. So that definitely was definitely the big, the big thing there.
Yeah, Travion Tennyson, I should say. He was the man of the hour for the Horned Frogs. He had 24 points, including 9 and 12 shooting overall. As we talked about on Friday, Lakina, you saw what TCU did at Kansas last year, putting their lights out via the shooting. This year, like you said, that shooting did cool off in the last few seconds of the game. I don't know what type of defense they were playing, but nothing was going to match what Hunter Dickinson did inside for the Kansas Jayhawks. Like you mentioned, I thought he was the MVP of the game for the whole game for Kansas. I talked about KJ Adams on Friday. He did some nice things as well. He had some big buckets as well. But it was all about Hunter Dickinson, and that's why Bill Self and Kansas walked away with that win.
Yeah, 30 points for Hunter Dickinson. I think that's right up there at a career high for him. So yeah, just a really great showing by him. And it'll be a great game. And they actually play again next month. So TCU will have their shot to get their revenge. Houston, no trouble with West Virginia. Ole Miss, they've been undefeated, but they got the first Big Test against Tennessee, and they failed miserably, 90-64. Jay's Ado had 24 points. When Tennessee's hitting their threes, we saw that against Illinois a couple of weeks back. They're very tough to beat.
Yes, they are. They are very tough to beat. I want to talk about the North Carolina-Clemson game. I did get a chance to watch the majority of that. North Carolina came back and beat Clemson 65-55. It was a slow start to that second half, but UNC made some big buckets when they had to. I know that Armando Bacot was the man of the hour for the Tar Heels. He had 14 points, but it was Chase Hunter that kept Clemson in it in that second half. He had 17 overall. It was a tight-knit first half, but like I said before, to start the second half, both teams were struggling, especially shooting from the three-point on the outside. But North Carolina fed that big man down the stretch, and they were able to pull off a tough 10-point win on the road.
Yeah, Bacot was definitely the guy on the inside too for North Carolina. He definitely kind of help lead that rally for North Carolina. So nice win for Hubert Davis and the crew there. Another good resume building win for Shaheen Holloway for Seton Hall. They upset Marquette 78-75. Alamar Davies had 23 points, and look, they stayed with Marquette. I mean, Marquette kind of let them hang around, but once it was time, Seton Hall kind of got it going, and they were able to pull off the upsets.
See, we have big leads, and I don't care what level of sport you talk about, high school, college, or professional. When you have a chance to put a team away, you got to put them away, because you let them hang around, you give them. You give your opponents confidence. They start making shots. They start doing all the little things, all the hustle plays. Momentum shifts in their favor. And 9 times out of 10, they come back to win those games.
Yes, they did. That's what gives Shaheen Holloway and his guys credit. They were able to do just that. Kentucky held off Florida. That was a good game. Oklahoma with a nice bounce back win. They beat Iowa State. A couple of upsets in one the Big 12 against Cincy beating BYU. I did not see this score coming at all. Because Cincinnati's kind of been kind of like meandering in the last couple of years, but this is the first big win in recent years. They beat BYU on the road in Provo. That's not an easy place to play.
Yeah, congratulations to them for getting that victory on the road, especially in conference play when you play tough games on the road. When you come out with impressive victories like that, your team should get a whole lot of credit. Now, one game that I was slightly disappointed in, but I wasn't surprised. It was Wisconsin at the Kohl Center beating Nebraska. Fred Hoiberg and crew 88-72. Lakina, we talked about it on Friday. What would Fred Hoiberg's team do with a tough conference game on the road? They started off slow. They could really never catch up.
Yeah. I mean, look, Wisconsin's one of those teams where, like I said, when they're hitting their shots, they're tough to beat, and Nebraska just couldn't get it going on. Couldn't get going on offense, and that was really what did them in there. But it's only, I think, they're like their second or third loss of the season. So if you're Fred Hoiberg, you're not too worried about it right now. But you want to try to see, look, you get him at home. I think in a few weeks. So maybe if you get him back at home, maybe you can get that could be a nice little resume building winner for Fred Hoiberg and his Cornhuskers. So we'll see what happens there. More upsets. You got Utah State beating Colorado State. Charlotte beat Florida Atlantic, and Southern Miss beat James Madison. So it's kind of like the upsets here in college hoops this time of year. But Baylor needed overtime, but they beat Oklahoma State. So a nice win for Baylor. Creighton, that's not really an upset. I know Creighton has been struggling, but this is a win that they desperately needed. So not too worried about them being Providence. So Auburn dominated Arkansas. So yeah, really solid showing by Bruce Pearl and his guys. They're kind of sneaking up there kind of quietly.
Yeah, you know, Bruce Pearl doesn't like to do things quietly, but like you said, they're doing that thing this year. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, St. John's. Rick Pitino doing a really nice job in his first year. That they beat Villanova 81-71, and perhaps could his Red Storm make some noise as we get closer and closer? They're 11-4, so yeah, they're kind of sneaking up there. We'll see. Should be interesting though in the rest of the conference.
I was going to ask you this, Lakina, about that Big East. I know it's not a dominant team. I know I haven't checked in on it too much yet because it's still early, but I know we got some couple more weeks to go before we really start getting things into swing. But outside of Marquette, do you really think that Big East is up for grabs? Because obviously it's not the same Big East as we watched growing up, but I kind of get that feeling it's up for grabs this year. I know Marquette is there, but it's them and everybody else. But maybe it's just me from way outside perspective looking into it, but I really don't see a dominant team in that Big East.
Yeah, I mean, you thought Creighton would be the dominant team, but they've had, they've kind of fallen off a little bit. They did get that win against Providence. I know Marquette's been, like you said, Marquette's been, but then they lost to Seton Hall. So yeah, I think that Big East is pretty wide open. So look, that's why they play the games. That's why you don't make predictions when they don't play the games yet. So you saw what happened there. But yeah, I think Big East. I think it could. I still think Marquette's the class of that conference. With that loss to Seton Hall, but yeah, I mean that second tier. Well, we'll see. I mean, like Providence, Creighton, Seton Hall. I mean, it'll be, like I said, it's gonna get interesting in that Big East. St. John's may have something to say about that as well. I'm talking about Rick Pitino, this guy. So we'll see.
Congratulations to my guy Penny Hardaway, yay! And the Memphis Tigers. Ranked number 15 in the country. They're 13-2 right now after Javon Quinterly's a game-winning three-pointer with less than 3 seconds to go propelled the Memphis Tigers to beat SMU 62-59.
Yeah, David Jones led the way with 17. He's a kind of their veteran leader there. But yeah, look, I mean, Memphis is kind of like, quietly, inching up there in the top 10. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do the rest of the season in American. Yeah, because it's gonna get pretty tough for them. We'll see what happens there in the American. Minnesota beat Maryland. Northwest, no trouble with Michigan State. And Penn State beat Michigan 79-73. So yeah, sorry about your guy Juwan Howard and crew.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But real quick for Northwestern, Lakina, after losing to Chicago State a couple of weeks ago, they really got back on track. I know you throwing that loss to the Fighting Illini as well, but as I said before, with Chris Collins and that now sort of veteran squad with Boo Buie and some of the others that were on that team last year, it was important for them to get back on track mentally and get back to playing their style of basketball. As you mentioned, they did that last night, defeating Michigan State. What's going on with Tom Izzo and crew?
Yeah,
it's not like them to get off to bad starts.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I know the injury. I know there was a shooting that happened with one of their guys, but they were struggling even before that. So I don't know if it's just an off year for him and that squad. I know they had that big win against Baylor at home, but they haven't been able to kind of get it going consistently since. So it'll be interesting to see what Tom Izzo does. I mean, you never want to count out a Coach Izzo crew and his crew, but it's not looking very good at this point, but yeah, so we'll see what happens. It's gonna be very interesting now. Going into some of the big games coming up tomorrow. You got Houston, Iowa State. You got Cincinnati and Texas. They host Texas. So that should be an interesting one there. Mizzou, the Fire Mike Burmans, they face Kentucky at 6. That's gonna be on ESPN. Let's see what other big games we got going on. I thought it was okay. Purdue and Nebraska. That's gonna be on Peacock. So we'll see if Fred Hoiberg is going to be a tough battle against Purdue, but we'll see if they can. That'd be a nice little resume building win for them. You beat the number one Purdue.
A couple of
No, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple other games for tomorrow night, Tuesday. We have number 22 Creighton paying a visit to Wintrust Arena. They'll face the DePaul Blue Demons. That's at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on CBS Sports Network. It will have number 19 San Diego State. The Aztecs will play San Jose State. That's the second game of that Tuesday night doubleheader on CBS Sports Network. That's at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time.
Then you got BYU and Baylor. That should be a fun one. That's gonna be on the Big 12 ESPN Plus network. Texas A&M against Auburn, and of course you got Wyoming against number 20 Utah State. Could be a sign of maybe 7 or 8, 6 or 5 or 6 teams coming out of that Mountain West Conference. So yeah, might be hear a lot of their names there. Northwestern and Penn State on Wednesday. Kansas against UCF. Tennessee and Mississippi State, and I think that's about it on the midweek side.
Okay, yeah, Oklahoma and TCU on Wednesday. That's on ESPN2 at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's going to be a highly entertaining game.
Yes.
Also, too, you have number 15 Wisconsin. They'll travel to Columbus to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's on the Big Ten Network on Wednesday at 7:30 Chicago time, and then Butler and Marquette on CBS Sports Network at 8 p.m. on Wednesday.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. Oklahoma and TCU, that should be a fun one. They're also too on ESPN too. That could be a high-scoring affair. So take the over on that one. Southern Illinois has been looking pretty good so far in the Missouri Valley Conference. They go on against Valpo. That should be a fun one as well. And Thursday, I know there's going to be some Pac-12 games coming up on Thursday. Thursday. I know there's some Pac-12 games. I know I saw them somewhere here. We're doing this live, folks. Sorry about that. UCLA against Utah. That's at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. Of course, talking about Illinois hosting Michigan State. That's going to be on FS1 at 8. And let's see here. Arizona State and Washington. That's going to be on FS1 at 10. That's a late game there. And yeah, that's about it there. And that's just good for some the week in college hoops coming up.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition. We're live in living color. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. We still have a few more minutes left in our program for today. Let's give our predictions for tonight's college football national championship game between the Michigan Wolverines out of the Big Ten and the Washington Huskies out of the Pac-12. Of course, if you heard our prediction from our good friend Randy Cross the last hour, he thinks that Washington is going to win. Lakina, I'll give you what are you looking forward to tonight's games? What are the one or two keys for both teams tonight for success tonight?
I think for Washington, it's going to be very opportunistic. We know they're very opportunistic when it comes to their defense. They're going to have to set the toe early, especially if they can slow down Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and J.J. McCarthy and that offense for Michigan State. They actually have a shot. If they don't, if Michigan can get it to a quick start early on, that's really going to be the key here. And we know that Michael, if they can kind of get it going, keep Michael Penix and his offensive guys off the field, it could be over with pretty quick. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I can see that happening. But if you're Washington, you want to try to get those turnovers, force some turnovers. We know sometimes J.J. Park does tend to do that if they're opportunistic. So if they can kind of get those opportunities, maybe they can keep it close. So yeah, I'm hesitantly picking Michigan, but like I said, I would not be surprised if Washington pulls it off. I just think that this is definitely a toss-up game in my opinion.
Here's the thing about the Michigan's defense, and I asked this question to Randy in our last hour. What kind of packages defensive packages are you going to have to stop Michael Penix Jr.? Are you going to keep him in the pocket and do zone coverage, let him pick you apart? Because as he said, you get him out, get Michael Penix Jr. out of that pocket, it could be a long night for you. So it's going to be interesting to see when does Michigan choose to blitz Michael Penix Jr. And because as Randy said, they did a great job on Alabama last week, and I thought Nick Saban should have opened up that offense a little bit more for Jalen Milroe and crew, because their running game, I'm talking about Alabama's, was stellar, especially starting that second half, but they didn't open up that offense a little bit more that I thought they should, or else they would be playing tonight instead of Michigan. But I want to see how Michigan's defense stands up against Michael Penix Jr. And on the flip side, Blake Corum, keep feeding him that rock. I know he was in the share committee against that Alabama front four, and Blake Corum did score 2 touchdowns off of 87 rushing yards. I want to see if Jim Harbaugh is going to give him the rock just a little bit more tonight.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key. Who do you have?
I have Michigan, but I wouldn't be surprised if Washington won. But I think Michigan, especially after what happened last year against TCU in the national semifinal, they finally got over that hurdle against Alabama. But I'll warn Michigan fans this tonight: you better come out focused, because just because you beat Alabama doesn't mean you're just going to cruise your way into this title game tonight.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I just think that he has. I mean, I'm talking about Harbaugh. He'll have his guys ready, and I think he'll be. Yeah, I think look, he'll have his guys ready for tonight. So we'll see what happens. There should be. I'm just hoping for a better national championship game like we had last year when Georgia just pulled the doors off TCU. I'm hoping that's not going to be the case here. I just don't see that happening. But yeah, it should be a fun one tonight down there in Houston.
All right, Lakina, let's do that hockey real quick. Kind of Bedar got hit in the jaw last Friday night in their loss. Blackhawks lost to the New Jersey Devils. How ironic you playing against a team called the Devils and you get your jaw broken. I don't think Conor Bedard will be participating in the All-Star game. We'll see about that. But he's going to be out for a while. I know the Blackhawks picked up a big win yesterday.
Yes.
But the story of hockey is gone for a while, and I just don't like it. He was having a great year, 15 goals and 18 assists.
And also means he's going to miss the All-Star game as well. Thanks a lot, Brendan Smith from the Devils. Whatever. But yeah, I know everybody. I know all Blackhawks should have wanted that guy's head after what he did to Bedard, but that was a clean hit. So that's really, unfortunately, his face unfortunately got the brunt of it, sadly. But I know Luke Richard shared a quick story about he too had a broken jaw, which that doesn't really surprise me. He was out for like 6 to 8 weeks, so that might be the same time for Bedard. We'll see what happens there, but he'll be even skinnier than he already is. So I guess that's a bright side to it, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, a nice work for the Blackhawks yesterday, and could kind of. We'll see if they can keep things afloat while he and a few more than a few others are still healing up.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be a struggle for the Hawks. Even though, like I said, they had a big win yesterday. It's going to be a tough task, but hopefully they can hold down the fort until he gets back. It's all going to be a development with the rest of the young guys on that team. We already know what the veterans what they're going to do, but it's all about the development of the other young guys. So we'll see how fast and quickly they can quote unquote grow up on the ice.
All right, Sis. Almost that. Okay, it says that time. Our first Old School TV Monday of 2024. Let's kick it.
All right, we are starting this year our first episode of Old School TV Monday for 2024 by saluting the ABC sitcom Grace Under Fire. That's right. Starring Brett Butler. No, not the baseball player. It was an American sitcom that aired on ABC from September 29th, 1993 until February 17, 1998. The show starred Brett Butler as a single mother learning how to cope with raising her 3 children alone after divorcing her abusive husband. The series was created by Chuck Lorre and produced by Carsey Warner Productions. It also starred Dave Thomas, no, not the former founder of the restaurant Wendy's, Dave Thomas, Julie White, Casey Sander, and John Paul Stewart. And also, you have Peggy Ray, Charles Hallahan, Don D.C. Curry from Chicago, and Lauren Tom as well. Lakina, the show lasted 6 seasons, and it's in syndication. I thought that this was an interesting show to salute because, remember, Lakina, we talked we'll salute good times down the road, but remember that original premise of that show, Florida and her 3 kids living in the projects in Chicago. She said, no, I wanted a father on the show, and she got it. But this was different at that time, Lakeem, because you really didn't, not to put too much racial issues into this, but you didn't hear about, even though it does going on in other communities, you didn't hear about white single mothers, quote unquote, getting praised like this, raising 3 kids on their own. Of course, she had help throughout the series, but it was interesting issues were brought up, of course, with drugs, abuse, and just school life and everyday family life. She worked in a factory, and so it was very revolutionary, I thought, in those undertones during that time in the early 90s.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it when it aired originally. I thought it was an interesting concept. You really didn't see a lot of blue collar single moms at the time, so they were kind of like one of the first shows to do that. But yeah, like you said, I mean, they weren't afraid to go into hard-hitting issues. It was kind of more of an adult sitcom. She did have 3 kids. Lauren Tom, of course, she would go on to do, of course, do the nanny after the show. That show ended. But Dave Thomas was hilarious. And it had a little nice mix of both, humor and a little bit of, like situational comedy, real life situational comedy. So I think that I gave it a little nice balance. And I know it got rave reviews, when it first came on. So yeah, I can see why it aired for about 4.5 to 5 seasons.
Yeah, and the opening theme, Lady Madonna, was performed by the late great Aretha Franklin from 1993 through 1996. And Perfect World was sung by Michael O'Brien from 96 until 1998. Also, it was used in the syndication for the 93 to 96 episodes. Looking at the reason I chose this program also, too, because I don't know if you have Vice TV on your streaming or cable service. They have this series called The Dark Side of Comedy.
Yeah.
A few of the things I knew, but many I didn't. And they did this episode on Brett Butler. Of course, I knew she was a comedian. She was rising up through the ranks of stand-up comedy at that time. Of course, it wasn't too many women that were doing it at that time. Of course, it was her, Whoopi Goldberg, who really shot up to superstar status in the 80s. And so she said, basically, if you watch that episode, Hollywood, the entertainment industry in general, but definitely Hollywood, if you're not too careful and don't have the white people in your corner, it will cheer you up and spit you out. She had drug issues, especially during the filming of that show in the later years. And she really went through it. She got a divorce in real life. And I know she went through some hard times recently as of 2020, but she's trying to get back on the road now. It looks like things are starting to look up for her, but she was in her 30s then. I think she is in her early 60s now and still trying to hang in there in the entertainment business.
Yeah, I know. I remember hearing about it. I think through like some of the various other places. So she had it rough. I know when she went through a divorce, she kind of hit rock bottom. Drug abuse and stuff like that. She is starting to she is back on the road doing comedy, which is that's her bread and butter. That's kind of how she first started. So I'm cheering for her. Hopefully, she can kind of get back going there, and then hopefully she can stay clean and sober. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, so for those of you who haven't checked out that episode of Dark Side of Comedy, the episode with Brett Butler, they feature Brett Butler. Go check it out. It was very interesting. So we'd like to salute the ABC TV sitcom from the 1990s, Grace Under Fire.
I believe it's streaming, I think on I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I know a lot of the episodes are on YouTube, so you guys can definitely check that out.
Yeah.
I think also Amazon Prime, I think, has the first season and 2 seasons, so check it out as well. But yeah, we salute I think it's on Tubi as well. I think Tubi, if you have Tubi, you'll make sure you check that out as well for free. With that said, you can follow me, Kenny McGee, on the Twitter, X and Kim's coming in the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at Warp Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And give Warp Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Check out Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, we want to thank our buddy Randy Crofts from CBS Sports Network and 3-time Super Bowl champ for joining us today. Of course, you check his stuff out at Randy Cross FB on his Twitter account. He has great football nuggets there. So make sure you guys check him out on. I think he's also on Instagram too. So make sure on the X and Instagram, follow him.
And don't forget, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports, and all other content on the Sports Zone Chicago network. Check out Sports Zone Chicago right now on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
And yes, we know, and we will provide.
And I will not sing it again until Friday.
All right, enjoy the sports, the college hoops and the NBA as we're getting ready for playoff weekend, Super Wild Card weekend. We'll be talking about that on Friday, and stay safe out there. I know it's going to be a little bit iffy with the weather, so make sure you guys stay safe. Don't act foolish with the weather, with the divots and stuff like that. I know it's how some of y'all are here in Chicago with that, especially. So
slow down.
Yeah, exactly. For Sid Island Kids of Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago, and we'll see you guys Friday.
Doubles, holla!